Traditionally, pharmacists were considered to be sort of like a supplying service. Really the first things that pharmacists really broke the ceiling with was antimicrobial stewardship.
There was very little antimicrobial stewardship around 2000. We were pioneers in terms of the system support for that. And so as guidance was being implemented across Victoria, it really did train up a cadre of pharmacists and clinicians who are working together. Generally speaking, most hospitals did have ID clinical lead and a pharmacist. In reality, the pharmacists were always the project officers, had a larger amount of time allocated to them either during the implementation and then ongoing. Clinicians have always struggled to get dedicated time, so many of us were on one session 3.5 hours a week or tiny amounts to actually support stewardship. In Australia, it really has developed as often a pharmacist-led or at least majority pharmacist-led program with infectious diseases physicians that straddles medication safety, quality use of medicines, as well as stewardship and infection prevention. So it is a very unique environment for pharmacists to be working in this quality use of medicine space, as well as infection prevention and other things that go with that standard.
What I really loved about the guidance group, even in my younger pharmacist days, is how they were doing something very different from traditional pharmacy. There was a recognition that there needed to be someone to manage antimicrobial stewardship activities, and pharmacists were a good fit.
A lot of it was Kirsty and Kaz that really pushed the agenda for pharmacists to be involved in this role, because we're medication experts. We have this certain personality, meticulous and in a sense, in a way, people who are very quality driven. So I think it suits our personalities too. It's just normal for us to do stewardship as part of our role. And the other thing as well, I think with pharmacists is we don't stick to just one team normally. In hospital settings, we work in diverse, many different areas. So with nurses, they're usually limited by their location, which is the ward. Doctors work in teams of units, so they might, surgical units or medical units. But pharmacists, we're sort of the bridge between everyone.
So stewardship, it's an amazing career path because most of us who work in stewardship have gotten experience in infectious diseases, very, very capable and very knowledgeable in terms of antimicrobial therapy for all the various types of infections around. And it means that once you become highly specialised in that particular area, you want to do something that has a much greater impact aside from just one patient intervention at a time. In addition to that, you skill up your expertise in software knowledge and using electronic systems.
So we live in a very exciting time in that pharmacists have very diverse roles these days. My role here is because I understand the hospital system quite well, and being also a clinician, understanding medication safety and quality. The development team rely on people like myself in this kind of role is the understanding of the hospital workflow, the principles of antimicrobial stewardship, and because we've worked as the people using the technology as well, they rely on us to provide that information to them in order to develop something that's meaningful.
If you're thinking about being a sort of end user, the people in the hospital using it in their day-to-day activities while seeing patients, I think this new version of guidance, it's more user-friendly, so I think people can get to where they need to go more quickly. And that's definitely, I think, one of our biggest priorities was making sure it can fit into a busy hospital workflow as seamlessly as possible, but while also providing sort of meaningful, not to use the word guidance, but guidance on antimicrobial prescribing. Being an antimicrobial stewardship pharmacist, I'm obviously interested in how the program can give me reports on antimicrobial monitoring, can it give me good reports on the performance of the antimicrobial stewardship team, and I think that's also something that we've done really well here with the new program. We really implemented different data points that it can capture, which can then get reported up to then say, what gaps are there in your antimicrobial stewardship activities and how can I address them?
The stewardship role has really brought pharmacists to the forefront of clinical leadership in the hospital in a way that didn't exist before stewardship and before guidance.